My guest today is an Ivy League trained civil rights lawyer turned award-winning science fiction author who is known for incorporating civil rights and Afrofuturism into his stories and novels. He's out with a new book, Goliath. Tochi Onyebuchi joins me coming up next.
Live from Los Angeles, this is the Special Report with Areva Martin.
Good morning, Tochi.
Good morning. Apologies in advance if you find me sipping from this coffee periodically. It's a bit on the early side.
It is perfectly allowed, perfectly expected. It's early. I appreciate that. Boy, you have such an impressive career. People look at my resume and think I've done a lot, but boy, you've taken that Columbia law degree and you have really stretched the limits of what it means to be an Ivy League trained lawyer. You've worked as a civil rights lawyer, you've worked public interest, and then you started writing novels, and not just novels, but comic books and video games. And I was just going through all of the amazing stuff that you've done. Don't know where to start. Obviously, you're out with this new book, Goliath, but let's just talk about you and you, the person. So I know you are you're a Nigerian immigrant. I guess your parents are Nigerian immigrants, correct?
Yes.
Right, but you grew up actually in the Northeast?
Yes, New England born and bred, born in Northampton, Massachusetts, raised mostly in Connecticut, New Britain, then Newington, right outside of Hartford. So fall is my favorite season by far.
And I guess I read that you had this interesting background because you weren't African American per se, or I guess people didn't consider you African American, or maybe you didn't consider yourself African American. So tell us what it was like being born to Nigerian immigrant parents and growing up in New England, which isn't known for its diversity, having spent some time there myself in Cambridge. So what was that like growing up?
I think you've hit on a very interesting point. In that being first generation Nigerian American, I operated in a sort of liminal space where I couldn't quite claim the African American experience. You know, my parents, my grandparents weren't involved in the civil rights struggle. You know, the Detroit race riots, for instance, were something that I read about as opposed to something that was personally experienced. At the same time, somebody who looks like me is still the object of racism. School administrator or a police officer or what have you isn't parsing my individual background in the midst of whatever act they're committing. And so, being raised, you sort of they get it from both barrels, but at the same time, I think I was very fortunate in the way that mom raised us. I'm the oldest of four. To always be conscious of these things, and also to recognize what a privilege it is to be able to directly trace your background, because that's not something that's afforded to a whole lot of people, particularly in this country, a whole lot of people who share my complexion.
Now, I often ask people who are like yourself, who are first generation and their parents have migrated from another country, but they're Black, or they're considered Black, in this country at least. How involved, if at all, did you get in like the civil rights struggle? I know obviously you had to read about it, you had to learn about it in school, but was that something that you took on? Did you consider yourself a part of, the Black fight in the U.S. for liberation or for, equal justice, equity? Did those things become personal for you?
I was a bit of a late bloomer. My awakening, I guess you could say, didn't really happen until law school. There were seeds planted previously in film school and in a lot of my storytelling, but an interesting thing happens when you start to study intimately legal structures in this country and their history and their application. And you start to notice that things are one way in your case books and another way in lived reality. And I think another aspect of my education that was particularly poignant was that I was in law school during the murder of Michael Brown. George Zimmerman was exonerated or acquitted the summer after my first year of law school. So all of these things are happening. The release of the Laquan McDonald dash cam footage. All of these things are happening while I'm in school, supposedly studying the majestic neutrality of the law. And so being surrounded by all of these things, it's very difficult to divorce yourself from the idea of inequality and the lived application of that inequality. And I gravitated very early on towards the issue of incarceration, particularly mass incarceration. It became an academic interest that arose out of personal connection, having known people personally that had gone through the system. And I was very interested particularly in international applications. And so what I mean by that is the summer after that first year, I actually got to go to the West Bank to work with an organization representing Palestinian Arab detainees. And during that time, a lot of our clients were on hunger strike, protesting the conditions of their confinement, while simultaneously prisoners in prisons and jails throughout California were engaged in similar hunger strikes. And so that really drove home the point for me that so many of these issues are universal. It's not just confined to the United States, but study of these things in one country can inform then, how I approach these issues back in my home country. So I came back to the States with the fire in my belly, so to speak. I completely revamped my whole career path. I went into law school, and I found out how much you can make as a corporate lawyer, and I was like, okay, yes, that. And then,
that part, okay.
Yeah, exactly. That part. Somebody has to fund mom's platinum years, that's the deal, right?
Right.
But then I woke up. To a lot of things that had previously been background noise for me. I'd lived a very charmed life as far as things go. I'd been very fortunate in my education, in my life experiences. But I couldn't be blind anymore to what was going on. And so that experience of law school during that particular time, while the country's sort of on fire,
right,
really changed things for me.
And so when you say you revamped your entire career, what did that look like? So no longer the big corporate law firm, the big paycheck. Is that when you went into you went to a legal aid office right in New York?
Yes. So it started in law school. I joined the mass incarceration clinic at Columbia, which is a tremendous experiential learning module. And that was my first introduction to Rikers Island. One of the things that we worked on was a class action suit that was being brought forward by prisoners and detainees in Rikers Island with regards to the issue of brutality enacted on them by corrections officers. And periodically, I and my partner, a fellow law student, would take the bus to Rikers, and we would interview prisoners, and they would describe episodes of this horrendous violence that had been visited on them in this environment. And so, you go through the routine of, taking the bus, getting off, getting on another bus, and then going across the bridge, going through security, walking down these halls, past the cells, and going to the visiting rooms and everything. And it does something to you just being in that place. And I'm fortunate in that I got to leave at the end of the day. But even just physically occupying a place like that does something to you. And I felt that this was a place where I could do some good. This field, I felt needed. I felt compelled to do this work, and I felt like I was gaining the skills to be able to make an impact, however small, with regards to this issue of incarceration in the United States. And so, after that, I was very fortunate to work as a civil rights fellow with the New York Attorney General's office. And that was an incredible experience. I got to work under the inimitable Kristen Clark, who has since, moved up in the world, even from
Big Justice. Yes, we love Kristen.
Yeah.
No,
she's absolutely incredible. She's one of the best bosses I've ever had. But it was fascinating because our ambit is to enforce the federal, state, and local civil rights laws, and our client, so to speak, is the population of New York State. And what was interesting about it was that we were doing this with the full might of state government behind us. There was an executive law that allows the attorney general to, that gives the attorney general wide latitude to investigate individuals or companies that are alleged to have committed civil rights violations. So whether with regards to employment discrimination, religious discrimination, things of that sort, we were able to investigate, and we were able to charge, or we were actually able to correct the behaviors of bad actors. And being able to do that right out of law school is incredibly powerful. Incredibly powerful.
And I know, having read your background, Tochi, that those experiences traveling abroad, doing that work in the Attorney General's office, in some ways led to your transformation from civil rights lawyer to author. Let's talk about that. I know you've written several super successful books. I'm just curious as to how you settled in on being a fiction writer that's kind of science fiction, Afrofuturism. How did you land there?
So I'd been a writer since I was a kid. It's actually Mom's fault. I was originally going to be a comic book artist, and she saw all these sketches I was doing and told me to start writing stories for them. And at the time, I asked her why she was giving me homework. But look what it's turned into. But I'd been writing since I was a kid, since I was in single digits. And I knew very early on that I wanted to be a writer, that I wanted to be able to do it professionally, that I wanted to have my name on the spine of a book on a shelf in a Barnes and Noble. It was just a matter of figuring out what career I would be writing around. Growing up in a Nigerian household, your career options are somewhat limited. There's doctor, lawyer, engineer, and then disgrace to the family. So I figured
you'd do the first one. You do the obligatory lawyer first, and that would satisfy your mom. So I know unfortunately, your dad passed pretty young, right?
Yes, yeah, he passed when I was 10 years old, and one of the effects of that was that it really rammed home this idea of filial responsibility. I couldn't really dilly-dally, with the business of finding myself or being a kid or what have you. You have all these uncles now that are telling you you're the man of the house, so you have to grow up pretty quickly. But one of the things that it did do was it brought the family incredibly close together. I love my family more than anything in the entire world. And my mother is the person to whom I'm most devoted. So if she wants me to be a lawyer, I'm going to be a lawyer.
Well, you did that for a while. You did a great job. You helped the prisoners in Rikers Island. You helped address civil rights violations. But I know Black Panther was a big inspiration for you. So, it's coming out, #2 in November. How excited are you for that?
Oh, tremendously so. The last time that I think I was this excited for a movie was when the first one was about to come out.
Wow. Yeah. And how did that, obviously just your interest in Black Panther, but how did that shape how you've written books. The new book you have out, Goliath. Tell us about that. And did Black Panther play a role in the writing of that book, or how were you inspired by Black Panther?
It's funny. I think Black Panther has had a greater effect on the industry than on me specifically. A lot of Goliath predated Black Panther. It started from a short story I'd written in 2013, and I wrote the first draft of the book in 2015. But I think one of the things that Black Panther did was it showed a number of entertainment industries, whether film, whether publishing, that there is a market for these stories that center Black folk, that have majority, sometimes exclusively, Black casts. And so in that environment, it's much easier for me to get a book like Riot Baby made. It's much easier for me to get a book like Goliath made that explores, that dives with incredible profundity into issues endemic to communities of color, specifically Black communities. So I will be forever grateful to the work that Ryan Coogler and company have done.
So I know Goliath touches on some of these really big issues like income inequality, gentrification, and racism. Now, given that you didn't experience a lot of that, you lived in your nice New England bubble, why write about those topics? Because it's not like I write about them because they were my lived experiences growing up African American in a housing project in North St. Louis. So they're very natural for me, very organic. But for you, Black, as we would consider you in the U.S., but having had a very different experience, why those topics?
It was around me. If I didn't experience it personally, friends or classmates had experienced it. Extended family members had experienced it. And also going to undergrad at Yale, town gown relations are the particularly hot button topic. And it's very easy to see just how delineated the Yale community is from the wider New Haven area. And that was something that made an impression on me very early on. And then later, as I became more aware of issues of systemic racism, one of the things that I started to learn was just how connected everything is. Incarceration rates linked to levels of poverty, linked to things like how many trees are planted in urban neighborhoods versus in suburban neighborhoods, and how that can affect, temperatures during the summer. And when it gets particularly hot during the summer, you get a lot of kids who are outside. And when you get a lot of kids who are outside, certain things are more likely to pop off than otherwise. All of it was connected. And so for me as a novelist, I'm very much drawn to big picture narratives. And so Goliath was an interesting opportunity for me to tie a lot of that together. It's not specifically a book about housing and about home. It's not specifically a book about environmentalism and environmental racism. And it's not specifically a book about poverty. It's about all of those things and how they are interwoven. And that to me is, the truest, most honest way of examining these issues. And also, this is something that I not only wanted to learn more about, but also felt it was a sort of moral duty to learn more about. It's part of my civic education to be made aware of these issues. If I'm going to vote in elections, then these are things that I should know about.
Oh, absolutely. Tell us, that book, or Goliath, comes out in 2022, but before that, and it's gotten incredible praise. It was considered, I guess, the USA Today 5 books not to miss, the New York Times Editor's Choice pick, and nominated for Best Science Fiction in 2020 by Dragon Awards. What did it feel like to have that kind of, a positive response and praise from some of these huge entities like USA Today and the New York Times?
Oh, it still feels like a dream. It still feels like a dream. Looking back, I'm like, I think that happened to somebody else. The reception of Riot Baby was it was truly beyond my wildest dreams. And the odd thing about it was that I wrote that book essentially just for myself.
Wow. And just so everybody knows, this is a book that takes place during the 1992 LA riots, and it's about a woman who possesses these like telekinetic powers. So it has some relevance to what was happening in that era. So when you say you wrote it for yourself, like, what do you mean by that?
So, 2014, 2015, we're being deluged with these moments of videographic evidence of police-involved killings of Black Americans. Over and over and over and over and over again. They're just waterfalling down our social media feeds. And, the sheer volume of it and the sheer volume of that tragedy in general gave me this incredible sense of powerlessness. It felt like there was nothing that I could do, nothing would change. Whether the victim was Michael Brown, whether the victim was Tamir Rice, whether the victim was Sandra Bland, it felt like nothing was changing, and it felt like what I sometimes wonder people might have felt like when the Amadou Diallo killing came to life. I was in high school during Sean Bell's killing, and so I started to draw this line between them all. And these weren't one-offs the way that some in journalism at the time were talking about them. This wasn't a new phenomenon. Maybe the sole innovation was that it was easy for civilians. It's easier for civilians to record them. And so out of this place of helplessness, the way that I'm able to process the world is to tell a story. That's how I'm able to organize it, fit my hands around it. And I knew that I had to get these feelings out of me somewhere. And writing a book was the most productive way to do it. So Riot Baby is a profoundly angry book. And I imagined that a lot of potential readers might find themselves the object of that anger.
Right.
But it was astounding to me just how well and how poignantly received it was.
It's really a young adult fiction, right? Because it won a lot of awards in that young adult category.
So I would personally categorize it as adult fiction, but the American Library Association awarded it an Alex Award, which is for books that have particular crossover appeal to high school age audience. Okay. And that was especially meaningful to me because Ella and Kev, the two siblings that form the central dyad of the book, are for a lot of the book teenagers. So the things that I'm writing about are things that are happening to teenage readers. So if they can see themselves reflected in the experience of these characters, that can be a tremendously powerful thing.
And Kev is actually incarcerated in this book at Rikers Island, where you had spent time when you were a Columbia law student at Rikers Island. So you're able to draw from your previous legal experiences, even in law school. I think I read someplace that you've written now like 17 books. Is that accurate, or is it more by now? Is it like up to 19 or 20?
17 unpublished before my debut YA novel Beast Made of Night back in 2017. And I mean, that just goes to show how hungry I was to be a published and professional writer. I mean, I think the first of those happened maybe at the tail end of middle school or sometime in high school.
Wait a minute, but you've written 17 unpublished novels.
Yes.
And how many books have you had published?
Oh my goodness. I think if I'm counting correctly, Goliath is 7 is either number 7 or number 8. I forget which exactly. But
so you've written 24 or 25. You can't remember. Oh my God, that's like incredible. And you've had 7 or 8 published.
Yes.
Most have won major awards. or been nominated for major awards. And so writing, is that like your full-time thing now, right? I mean, you've given up on, not given up, but you're no longer practicing law, even though you're barred in New York to practice law. You're not practicing at this point, right?
Correct. I, as of March of 2019, have been a full-time writer. It was a little scary making that jump, but I've been incredibly blessed to have had the career that I've had so far, and to be able to make a living off of this, which makes one an outlier in the industry.
It's not easy making a living as a writer. So are you writing, is there a schedule here? Did you got to turn out 2 books a year or 1 book a year? What's the plan here so that you can continue to be a writer that supports themselves on books?
Oh, it's utter, as far as routine goes, it's utter chaos.
Okay.
I mean, the thing about it, though, my engine is that I love writing more than any other single activity. It'd be easier for me to stop breathing than to stop writing. One of my favorite movies of all time is Chariots of Fire. And a reason for that is that between the 2 main characters, Harold Abrahams, who's this Jewish runner at Oxford, and Eric Liddell, who's the other protagonist, who's this Scottish missionary, and they're both training for the Olympics. They both have relationships to running that are analogous to my relationship with writing. And at one point, Eric Liddell's supposed to be preparing to take over the family mission in China, but he's caught up in training for the Olympics, and his sister is needling him and terribly worried. She's saying, so much running, so much pacing, and no room for standing still. And he takes her aside and he tells her, Jenny, I know God made me for a purpose, but he also made me fast. And when I run, I feel his presence. And when he said that, I was like, yes, that's it. That is me in writing. It really is the closest I come to connecting with something bigger than myself.
Wow. So are you writing literally like a book a year, 2 books a year?
Yeah, that's about the pace.
That's the pace. Okay, so some of these books, like War Girls in particular, and so many others of your books seem like they would be perfect for the big screen. Have you thought about, or are you transitioning into screenwriting?
Absolutely. It's funny that you should ask that at this particular time. By the end of the week, I'm supposed to turn in a draft of a pilot for a TV show. So this is a good kick in the pants to get cracking on that.
Is your TV writing also Afrofuturism? Like, what's the bent of you as Tochi as the screenwriter? What are we going to see?
Oh my goodness. It's kind of all over the place. There is a science fiction tinge to a few of the projects, but also one of the things that I'm interested in is spreading my wings quite a bit across genres. The spine of a lot of my writing is a connection to social issues, and so that's not going away. Everything I write, I try to have some social relevance or some importance as a dimension to it. But we're going to be all over the place. One of these days, I hope to write me a rom-com.
Okay, so you're not limiting yourself at this moment to just social issues or issues of inequality or gentrification, or even just science fiction. You want to just run the gamut of all genres. That is so fascinating. I know you said you're working on a screenplay now, or TV pilot. What's next for you? It just seems like there's no end to what someone with your skills and your passion and obviously serious work ethic can do. So, what's next on the horizon? Obviously more books and this TV project, hopefully we'll see come to fruition. But, what are you thinking next with Tochi?
Oh my goodness. I mean, hopefully, the next step will be to to see my name in the credits at the end of an episode of television, or at the end of a movie. That, I think, is the next tangible goal. But all the other stuff will absolutely continue. Prose is my first love. I can never see myself abandoning it. I'm having the time of my life writing Captain America: Symbol of Truth for Marvel. I had a fantastic experience writing in video games for Call of Duty Vanguard, and so that's something that I hope to do as well. Basically, trying to add as many arrows to the quiver as I can.
So your books, I know you're writing this TV, you're writing for a TV pilot, but what about your own books? Have you thought about how you translate your own books into like a big screen movie?
Oh yes, that is absolutely in the works. I'm new to the whole Hollywood scene, so I'm not quite sure what I can say or not say. So I'm basically practicing my, I can neither confirm nor deny.
Okay, but that means something is in the works. I know you went to film school yourself. Have you thought about directing and getting behind the camera yourself? Not just writing.
Absolutely. I mean, someday, Lord willing, albeit way down the line, I would very much like to direct. I think it would be such an incredible opportunity to, not just on the page, but visually shape a story. And because I write so visually already, it seems like only the next logical step. It's something that I would love to learn more about, and if there's a particular master that I could study at the feet of, I would gladly take that opportunity. But absolutely, that would be absolutely incredible.
Yeah, who would be that person for you if you had a magic wand and you could just wave it and get to work with one of your favorite directors? Who is that?
Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm going to choose one domestic and one foreign. The foreign director would be Jacques Audiard, who is, this French director, mostly known for crime movies and thrillers, but they're simultaneously these sweeping observations of humanity and of people sort of in extremis, while at the same time being so minutely detailed. And it's just how he's able to get the macro and the micro of the human experience is just incredible, and all of it within this incredibly propulsive narrative framework. So he's on the list. And then domestically, oh my goodness, if I had a direct line to Ryan Coogler, y'all would never hear from me again.
Okay, Ryan may be listening to you say that. Oh, you never know. You put it out in the universe, right? That's how things happen, is you name it and you claim it. Wow. Given what Ryan has done, the movies that he has directed, and given your interest, seems like you guys would be just the perfect pair. So the next question is, when are you moving to LA? Because, things like this don't happen in Connecticut. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
I mean, Connecticut is fine, but it's not the center, of motion picture making.
If my representation has their way, I would have moved to New Haven. I would have moved to LA yesterday. They've been trying to get me out there since forever. It's I'm so dug into this region that I've been privileged to call home. Pretty much all my life. I love seasons too much. I don't know that I could ever give up seasons. I may have to do
you also like transformation, and you like new things, Tochi. So you're not a guy that gets dug in and gets stuck. You're a guy that likes the next big adventure. I already know that after 30 minutes. So see, don't tell me you can't move to LA, or, you can stay those 3 months, experience September, October, November, and then, December through the summer, you could be in LA.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. It's gonna happen. It's going to happen. I know it like I know gravity. It's going to happen.
Bi-coastal is the thing here. Is you'll be right at home with so many others that love the Northeast, but also recognize where the opportunities are, and being in the energy and the mix of, making movies and doing the kind of work that clearly is so important to you. Well, I just want to say congratulations again on all of your incredible success. Everyone should go out and pick up one of your 8 books that have been published from Goliath to, Riot Baby, War Girls, the list goes on and on. We won't get to read necessarily right now those 17 unpublished, but there are plenty of books on the shelves at Barnes and Noble with Tochi's name on the spine, which was always his dream. And what an example of living out your dream and dreaming big and, not being afraid to go for it. I think that's the biggest takeaway from this interview for me today, is that you had a vision as a kid and you just followed it through. And those 17 unpublished books, you didn't stop. You didn't get to book number 10 and say, hey, nobody's interested, I'm going to stop being a writer. You just kept going, and that's so amazing.
No, I've been blessed. I've been blessed to find my thing. The thing that I love to do, but also the thing that gives me the sense that I can contribute to society, that I can, say things that may not have necessarily been said before, that I can help better the situations of people, whether that's materially or simply emotionally. It was once said that, an hour reading is an hour stolen from heaven. And
wow.
That has been an abiding truth of mine.
Well, keep on writing, keep on giving people that opportunity to steal that hour from heaven. Thank you, my friend. Pleasure sitting down with you this morning.
Oh, the pleasure is mine.
I want to just thank my guest, Tochi Onyebuchi. What an amazing man, writer, author, soon to be screenwriter. He has just done an amazing job in terms of using his legal career to tell those stories of inequality, gentrification, issues of race in this country. And he does it, even though that hasn't been his personal experience. I love that he took some time away from what he thought was going to be his career path of big law to go and see what it was like to work at Rikers Island, to work with incarcerated populations, and then to use those experiences in his books. I am just so proud of him and proud of the work that he's doing. And I can't wait to see what happens with some of his projects, his own books that I'm sure are going to be turned into blockbuster movies, the writing that he's done for Marvel, the comic books that he's doing, the video games. I mean, this guy is just, he's a one-man wrecking crew. When you look at his Wikipedia page and you go online and look him up, he's done so many incredible things. And he's so humble, and as you can see from that interview, just a delightful person. So again, for me, he just epitomizes what we should always remember, which are my words to live by, which is dream big and do it big. This guy had a dream as a kid, and he didn't give it up on it. He did not stop. 17 unpublished books. That means he was trying for 17 times to get those books published, and he kept hearing no, 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 but he didn't stop. He didn't let those no's, he didn't let the outside world, he didn't let those strangers that didn't really know him deter him from just plowing ahead and staying on the course that was meant for him. So that's a lesson for all of us. Don't give up on our dreams, even when other people don't see our greatness. Remember, as long as we can see our greatness, we can achieve it. We just got to believe in it. Be safe out there. Remember, we're all in this together.